Well, hello everyone. It is Karen Harima again, and we are here for a Thursday Night Live. For those of you that might be tuning in for the first time, a little bit about me. I'm a personal wardrobe stylist. I am a style and beauty blogger at stylebykaren.com, and I'm also an ambassador with Stella.Family and Brands, which includes skincare, accessories, and jewelry. Well, tonight I am super excited because Blumer and I have known each other. Our paths have crossed several different times, but I have got to know her so much better just the last year or so. So Anne is the creator of Solutions for You, her organizing. She's a certified personal organizer. She is also a speaker and author, and she founded the Institute for Professional Organizers. So she's willing to come into my little Facebook group, and whether you are watching live or on the replay, I hope that you will learn something, and you can always ask questions afterwards too if you are watching live and you have a question. The one thing about the StreamYard platform is they want you, we can see your comments. The name isn't associated to the comment until you go in and click on that link in when it started, and just click on that, and it gives StreamYard permission to use your name on Facebook. And once you do that one time, you are all set. So anyway, we are going to get going. So Anne, thank you again. Well, tell us a little bit how you got into organizing and how you knew that this was the career for you.
That's an interesting story. It's kind of a long story, so I'll try to make it short. I have always been organized, and that's good and bad. The bad is that I think sometimes I'd benefit my clients more if I had to learn how to organize, because I'd understand where they're coming from a little bit better. But anyway, I kept hearing from people that at work, I used to work in human resources for a high-tech company here in the Portland area. Mm-hmm. And my coworkers would come to me and just say, "Hey, you're just so organized." And I was like, what do they mean? I don't know what they mean. And one day, a woman who was on my team, she said, "You are so organized. I would just love to have you come organize my kitchen." And I thought, isn't everybody's kitchen organized? I didn't understand. So people could tell me to do this, and I didn't understand what this was. I didn't understand that an organizing skill was something that was unique. And so I just started one day way back then. This was in the 80s. Before I started, I was just curious about it. I went on the internet, whatever it was at the time. It wasn't Google. I don't know what it was. And you could search, and I searched organizing or organizer or something. And the National Association of Professional Organizers is what the association was called then, came up. And I found out that there were like 1,200 other people in the United States that were doing this for their career. So I just got curious about it. And just over the years, I kind of kept thinking about doing it. And then when I came into a point in my life where I had a transition, and it was just a time where I could do this. I remarried, and my husband said, "Why don't you think about doing that organizing thing that you've been researching?" And he was starting his own business. Mm-hmm. And so we were forming a company, and that's why we called the company Solutions for You, so he could do his consulting under it, and I could do organizing under it separately.
I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. Well, and then you also train others to be professional organizers as well. I mean, I know that has evolved. It didn't start right away. So tell us a little bit about that.
So that started pretty shortly after I even started my business. I started my business in 2003, and I joined the National Association of Professional Organizers local chapter in Oregon. And I was invited to be on the board, and I was in membership. And for a year, I saw people come in, and then the year later, people left. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why weren't they successful? Why didn't they continue with their business? So I talked to a few of them, and I found out a couple of things. One was they loved to organize, but they couldn't organize others. They were pretty set in how they wanted things to be done, and that didn't always work out for that they had a vision of how it should look, and that wasn't always what the client wanted in the end. And the other was they'd never run a business, or they'd never worked in a business, and so they didn't take care of their business. And so I thought to myself, well, I know how to do both. I can teach people different ways to organize, not just one way, and I know how to manage a business. So I thought, maybe I'll try to train some people. And so I mentored some people over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I started to grow my curriculum. And then I just spent one whole summer writing the curriculum and launched the program in August of 2004. So I'd only been organizing other people for about a year and a half when I started the training program. Yeah.
So, so let's say someone is interested. You've got this potential client who's interested, and you have to fine tune their needs, because their whole house could be, they might say, every room is a disaster, and really honing in and pinpointing how do you go about fine tuning that, because that could be overwhelming, I'm guessing.
Right. Well, it's interesting because that you say that could be the whole house, and that's generally there isn't really a particular room that people call and say they want me to come help them organize. It's generally two things. Their whole house is disorganized.
Okay.
And they've never been organized. They don't know how to organize. The clutter is getting out of control. It's affecting their relationships with the people that live in their home.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even have any idea how to begin with that. So I go through a pretty thorough needs assessment and really find out what type of disorganized person they are. There's two types typically. You're either chronically disorganized or you're situationally disorganized. And the people that I'm talking about are primarily chronically disorganized, which means they've been disorganized their entire adult life. They've tried to get organized before and they haven't been successful. And it's affecting them or somebody else every single day. That's how you know if you're chronically disorganized. Then there's situational disorganized, which is you've gone along and you've been organized, pretty well organized. It hasn't been a problem. And then something happens. Okay. So they might somebody might die, and they suddenly take on the person who's past belongings. And they come into their home and they start to take over the space, and they don't know what to do with them. Or they have trauma from somebody passing away, and they go into a depression, and they suddenly can't even think about how to do anything. They're just kind of paralyzed for a period of time. Things get very foggy, and their environment starts to look like what's going on inside. It starts to get very cluttered because what's happening inside is reflected outside. Did I answer your question?
Well, because I assumed, it kind of gets to my next question. I assumed that people would probably say, like, okay, my spices in my pantry are a mess, which you would probably then say, well, I'm guessing it's more than just the spices, it's the whole pantry, and that to probably the whole kitchen. Which then my next question is there a more common room? Do people tend to hire you more for, a garage or a kitchen, or is it really depend? You don't find that there's patterns with different rooms?
No, it's people will hire me for a specific room. They will say, my kitchen is just a disaster. I can never find anything. I put things away. People put things away in a different place than I put them away. There's no system to where we're keeping things. So that can happen. It can be the kitchen. It's often, if you're working out of your home, it's a home office. Mm-hmm. It's very often paperwork. People don't know what to do with their papers. And they have a lot of paper, and they don't even know how to make decisions about what is important to keep in their paper. That's a big one. Garage is a big one, because that's where, when you do start to declutter your home and you shuffle things out, they usually get shuffled out into the garage. And because they're not quite ready to let go of them for many reasons. And so they hold on to them, but they're out in the garage, and so they're not bothering them. And then suddenly they can't use it starts to just build up, and they can't use the garage for what its intended purpose is, which is to contain your cars.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to the kitchen for just a second,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that, a lot of people probably, I mean, it's easy to get disorganized there, but can you think of something kind of off the cuff here that would just be like a good kitchen organization tip, like something that just comes to mind that's so common that you just always start with? Probably drawers, maybe cupboards. What comes to mind?
So, well, sometimes it's a matter of maximizing the space, and usually might need some products to help you do that. And one of my favorite ones to use almost anywhere in the house, but especially in the kitchen, is a turntable.
That's right. I remember.
Because you have
Mhm.
cabinets that are very high up. A lot of homes, they're very high up because they have very tall ceilings, since they want to maximize that space. And you often can only reach the very first shelf. So if you put a turntable in there, then you can spin it around and reach anything on it that would be in the back of the shelf. It comes forward to you. So those work great in upper cabinets. They work great even under the sink. I like to use them myself in my refrigerator on the top shelf, because I can't reach the very back of my top shelf of my refrigerator. I'm kind of vertically challenged. And also in your pantry, if you have really shelves going up high in your pantry, it's a great place to use those. So often it's, and then finding things that fit together well to maximize the space, adding a shelf here and there so you can stack things better and reach in to get those. There's lots of things you can do in the kitchen.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah.
that's a really good idea, because I didn't even think about that for the fridge, and that's
Oh, yeah.
very
Yeah.
helpful. So we have one comment. So it's so fun hearing about the start and how the process works. So anyway,
Good.
so yeah, whoever's commenting, just remember to go and click on that StreamYard link, and then we'll know who's talking. We'll see it afterwards. So it's not a big deal if you don't. Okay, let's move on to the closet. So the closet is an
Oh,
area
yeah.
we both work in.
Yes.
And for those of you that know me well, or again, if you're watching for the first time, what I do and I'm going to quickly explain what I do and explain what
Mhm.
Anne does. It's a little bit different. So
Yeah.
obviously, I really work with helping women, with their clothes, with their style, and pinpointing not just their personal style, but their lifestyle, colors, body type, and really work more with their clothes, finding new combinations, knowing, creating a plan for what they might need to do. And I also do, some organizing when I go into closet. If I see things that really need to be categorized, or if I see someone who is not using space well, I work with that. Anne and I both talk about high real estate and dead space. Those are both terms we use, and really I didn't even know it. But I think what's so different with you do, I know you give people great organization tips with the categories like me, and also, how to part with things, you give them tips there. But what I always explain to people is, I can't do any of the structural stuff. And I know you work with the Container Store and
Mhm.
can take it so much further than I do. So can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. Well, again, it's maximizing the space, and oftentimes a closet is just not being maximized because it's not structurally set up for how what your inventory is, what your wardrobe is.
Mhm.
For example, some people are very visual and they don't want to keep anything in drawers, nothing folded. They want everything hung up. That's who I am. I like everything hanging so I can just see it. I forget what's in my drawers.
Right.
So I usually use my drawers just for my workout gear and, undergarments,
Mhm.
that type of thing. And I just want to see everything else. So then you need a really great hanging system, a closet system. You don't need shelves. You don't need drawers. It just needs to really maximize the space for hanging. So you want to be able to have double short hang set up in there, and some long to hang. Sometimes there's only just one bar in a closet, and you're just wasting a lot of space because there's all that space down below. Even up above, you can raise the bar up higher if you need to. So it's understanding what a person's inventory is and then designing the structure around that. Shoes are a really big obstacle for people. Finding room for all the shoes. And there's some great systems out there that can really help with that. My favorite one at the Container Store is there's something called a gliding shoe shelf or gliding shoe shelf or shoe rack for heels. and you can get 9 pairs of heels in just like one drawer size. And
Wow.
if you can just like do a whole column of that, if you have a lot of shoes, it just really maximizes the space.
Yeah.
Um, and then just using containers to keep things on the higher shelves. You know,
Mhm.
your off-season clothing, you can fold up and put into containers that have covers to keep the dust off. So yeah, the Container Store has 3 different types of closet systems and different price ranges, different materials. So I love going in and finding just the right system for them, and then choosing which closet line they want for their aesthetic preferences. Yeah.
Does the Container Store, do they install that then? How does that part
Mhm.
work, the actual installation? Do you advise, or how does that go?
Yeah. So what I do when I go to meet with somebody who wants a closet is I go in to take basically the inventory of their wardrobe. So we're making sure we get the right system for them. And then I also take the measurements of the space. And then I come back and I do a rough design, and then I submit that to the designers at the Container Store. And depending on which closet system is, they create the design for that line of closet lines. So there's Alpha, there's Avera, and there's Laren.
Okay.
With the Alpha, you can install it yourself, or they will install it for you. And then there's a fee for that. And with the Avera and the Laren, those have to be installed because they're custom fitted to the space. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, and it's just good. And we've talked to how, again, you kind of can pick up where I leave off, because sometimes I will leave someone's house and they do need so much more work with the actual closet. Like you said, just sometimes 2 tiers, or, I couldn't say the little things that they need, but then it's often something that doesn't quite get done, which leads me to my next question.
Sure.
Because people, I think, it's just like, okay, where do I start? What
Mm.
is usually that biggest obstacle people have when getting started with a project?
Now there's kind of a number of them, but mostly it's so if they've never known how to organize before, that's their obstacle. They just don't know how to
Mhm.
set up a system that will work for them. It's as simple as my mother was kind of my first client, and she was it wasn't clutter, but she was just kind of messy, and things just kind of lived where they landed.
Mhm.
Okay, nothing had a place. And so I taught her, I said, Mom, you need to have a place for everything. And it's like a home, and it always goes back there. And
Right.
it's where you're going to access it most frequently. So it needs to be where you would need to get it. And she was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And I was like, and then she was organized. So it was just like that one little thing. Just all of a sudden she said, oh, I need to put this here because this is where I use it.
Well, I think too
Yeah.
is when, we both like to organize, and we both, our brain just kind of works that way. But I think you just said a mouthful there, is that a lot of people don't know how. It doesn't come naturally to
Right.
them.
Right.
And that's why they need help. And that's one
Right.
of the biggest things people have to realize, is that, when you can't do something on your own, it's okay to
Get help.
ask for help, and to get to get help in that category. Which I was thinking about, how many people when the pandemic started, how many people were organizing their stuff. They were going through closets, they were doing this, they were doing this, and I wonder how much of it got really completed. And it was one of the
Mm.
reasons I wanted to do this interview, because I think there's probably so many so many started projects but not completed.
Right.
And then I just got a question from Michelle, because this is kind of getting into my next question. So I think we can answer this at the same time.
Okay.
So moving is overwhelming. I've done
Mm.
it 3 times in the last 5 years, and I have gotten rid of so many things. But then there are those things that you look at, or you open a cupboard. I know my sister is saying this right now too. She'll open a cupboard. She has to start going through some stuff, and she just doesn't know where to start. And it's like, it's letting go a little bit of it, but it's really knowing, am I going to need that now?
Mhm.
Need that later? Do I part with it? And then you just stare at it. And Michelle is saying, how do I go about deciding what stays and what goes, especially when it comes to sentimental? So I know what I say about sentimental things. So you go and you tell about sentimental things, and then I'll give my 2 cents as well. I bet it's
Okay. Well, sometimes it depends on the size of what that sentimental item is, right? And is it even going to fit in your space? And is it something you really love? Maybe it came from somebody else. Maybe it was passed down to you. And so that's how you have that sentimental attachment. And it's through that it was somebody who was important to you. It belonged to them. And that's why you had the sentimental attachment. But you don't really like it. You don't use it. It's not really important to you. The object isn't. But it represents a memory of somebody else. And that's what's important to you. So it's understanding that. And if that's enough that you can separate from it, because you're still going to have the memory of the person that it represents. People hear this all the time. Take a picture of it. You don't need to keep the thing, but if you want to remember it, keep a picture of it. You might write about it and have some type of an online journal or a paper journal with a photograph of it. So that's how you preserve that memory if you feel it's important to pass it on to somebody else, especially if it's like family heirlooms and that type of thing that you just really feel you want to respect the person who cared so much about this object and somehow represent it and memorialize it in a way that is easy to pass down. It doesn't have to be the thing that gets passed down. So did that answer the question?
I think that's good advice. And for clothing, what I usually say is when I'm in someone's closet is I often, I'll say, tell me about this piece. And, so much gets decided when they can talk it through with me.
Right.
And I will even say, if you're on your own, talk it through.
Yes. Yes.
Through, because that really helps and when I hear some really key things, like I'm like, okay, that goes in the sentimental category. I'm not going to tell you to get rid of that. I mean, and you have to pick it, there's some things you're going to have to pick and choose, and it might have to be a picture depending on space, but with clothes, some of that really comes through when they start talking about it. So the next question before I go on to a little bit more on moving is someone's asking any freezer tips, because a freezer always seems cluttered and it's frustrating to find things in a freezer. I agree with that.
Okay. Well, it depends on the freezer, but I think this would work in any freezer. One of my favorite products to use for lots of spaces in the home is a product that's at the Container Store, and it's called a multi-purpose bin. I almost want to go get one. Can I get up and go get one?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, you can. And while she is doing that, we're going to talk a little bit more about moving, because moving can be such an overwhelming task. She does and helps, especially seniors, with moving, and just again, they've accumulated so many things over the years. So, okay, good.
It's show and tell time. So this is a multi-purpose bin.
Oh, okay.
And so they're, get in the right place, long, but they come in different widths. So you can get some narrower, and then there's one that's like a little bit bigger than that. And so this one has like my first aid in it. Okay. These fit in like a freezer drawer and just in the freezer. And they're tall, so they hold lots of food high up. So it maximizes the height also, and it keeps things separate. So in my freezer, I have one for, say, poultry, one for vegetables, one for frozen fruit. So that's how I separate them out. So that keeps them separate and not as messy.
That's a great idea. No, I like that.
Okay. I use those everywhere.
And what we can do too, for those of you that are watching, or as if you end up watching on the replay, we'll obviously be posting some pictures, and we can post links and things too in the comments, so it's all in one thread and easy to find. And as you walked away, I said one thing about moving is that elderly people who are moving, I mean, sometimes there's so much, and I know that you kind of specialize in helping with moving. I know it's hard to pinpoint one or two things, but if you could give someone some moving tips, what would that be?
Start early. I have a whole story about that, but we won't go into that tonight. So start early and have a plan. And what I help people with is I have basically an 8-week countdown to your move date plan. So what you would do each of those weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And just getting it into a plan helps relieve the overwhelm. And it helps you to focus on what you need to be focusing on right now. And you don't have to worry about the future because you've got a plan for it. You know it's going to get taken care of, and you know when it's going to get taken care of. So sometimes if people, I have an 8-week plan, but we can condense that down to, even a shorter period of time. It just means you're doing more in a week to get it done.
Right.
So I think people just kind of get overwhelmed and then start to get a little bit paralyzed. But anytime you can plan any kind of organizing project, is just to sit down and think about, what do I need to get done?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just need somebody to help you think through all those pieces.
And then I know everyone is wondering this, is how are you doing this virtually?
Oh, virtually. Well, I was doing this virtually before COVID hit. I took a training program on how to organize others virtually over 5 years ago. And the nice thing about virtual organizing is, well, here's the difference. You don't have me right there with my hands helping you.
Sure.
So for some people, that makes it a deal breaker because they really need somebody there doing the physical work and being present with them, physically present with them. Sometimes people just need that anchor to help them stay focused. So basically, you just don't have my hands. Otherwise, it's just, I am giving you the same guidance, verbal instructions, as I would if I was right there with you in the same room. The sessions are shorter. So that sometimes helps people because they can fit it into their schedule easier. Sometimes it's a time factor for people of why they won't get organized or schedule time with me, because they don't have the time. They can't take the time away from work to do it. And since it's shorter sessions, it's also more affordable.
Right.
But what it means is you need to be doing some of the work in between our sessions. But I give you clear instruction on how to do that. And I'm available by text or phone or email. If you get stuck, I can help you get unstuck and keep moving forward.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Chris has a question before we get into your pictures that we're going to show. Chris has a question. What do you advise about organizing things for others you live with who are very visual and say they forget things if they aren't in sight?
So do they forget they have them, or do they forget to do something? That would be kind of different.
I think I know where Chris is getting, because I know Chris.
Okay.
And I think what she's getting at is for her husband.
It's always the husband or the wife.
Has a plethora of, I'm just going to use shirts for example, and she could be referring to something else, but that maybe she wants to tuck some certain things away, or just have a few of things to choose from, and then I'm guessing that it is that they're out of sight. But anyway, we can clarify that later too,
Okay.
if we're not answering the question absolutely correct. But I mean,
So,
what would you say?
So that comes down to somebody who probably, it sounds a little bit like my mother situation. They haven't designated where things really need to be placed. Because if you know where things are placed, then you will visually remember where they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't place them there,
Right.
you're not going to know where they are. My example is my kids, when they were young, they were always coming to me and saying, Mom, where's this? Mom, where's that? Because they didn't place it. I put it there.
Yeah.
And so then I finally gave them the control. You need to put your things away. You need to decide where they need to be so that you know how to find them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, well, this was
Wow, the time went so fast.
timing though. And so for those of you watching, what we're going to do now is, before this all started, we were attempting the screen sharing thing. And this is all a new platform and new technology, and I hadn't screen shared before. So Anne has a little video and some pictures, and she's going to walk her way through it. So we're going to hope that this works and you can see it. And if not, we will post it from there. So go ahead and you click on your part to screen share, and then I'm going to add it there, and we keep our fingers crossed that it works.
Can you see it?
I can. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So I thought it would be fun to show you my very first client project, and that was in 2003, and it was her garage. And it's that exact example I showed you. She had me walk her through her whole house, and when I was walking through her whole house, I wondered why I was there, because everything didn't seem to be disorganized. Mm-hmm. And then she showed me the garage, because this is where everything went as she would clear out her house. And then it never went anywhere else. And I worked on this project by myself. She did not participate. She was available for me to ask her questions while she was at work. And this was before we had phones where you could, show pictures or, do FaceTime or anything like that. So it was a little more challenging. So this is the garage, and this is just kind of the whole room look. And it's a video, so as you go through it, you're going to be seeing the before and then the afters of each space. So here we go. So this is starting to sort through it. And this is where I've sorted for what needs to go.
Oh, wow.
And then I assembled these IP shelves by myself.
Oh my goodness.
And put them up and relocated things into different zones. This was the before of their shoe storage. And these are bins for each child for the backpacks and school things. This is the other side of the garage. And that area too. They were both tennis coaches for college. That's why there's so many Nike shoe boxes there. And you can kind of see out the garage the things that we're leaving. So again, having uniform bins that can maximize all those spaces is important too. So finding the right containers.
Well, that is amazing. And how impressive for that to be your first one. I mean, I can't believe that.
And that was one day. I did that in one day. I was younger.
Well, I put the banner at the bottom. So, anyone who's watching now, you can check on Anne's website. You can go to the website. You can learn more. There's more photos. There's a lot more information there. And I just encourage you to do that and add any comments. We'll both go back and look. So if we didn't answer something exactly right, we'll be sure to do that later. And then, Anne, feel free to post any pictures in the thread, anything that you want to add to it. I just appreciate you doing this.
Oh, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, and have a great night. And thanks everybody for watching.